And I think at that point we came into the lean-to, let's see, we left at 12:45. So, and I was taking 2 hours. So once again, we came in at 10:45.
Perfect.
Which was great. You know, I had hoped for 17 hours, and I think that was a couple hours off of my 17-hour goal. But given the fact that I had been moving well through the whole thing, we had been super efficient, there were no major hiccups, that we just figured, you know, my estimates were off. It wasn't a matter of anything else, and not a big deal there, other than I'd probably be cutting out my second nap that I was hoping I might be able to sneak in for day 4. So, but for then it was the time where I kind of was like, all right, let's start to push. I'm feeling good. You know, things are on track. And so that meant instead of my 4-hour rest, I would be taking that 2-hour rest. And so, you know, about 90 minutes or so, I think, of sleep, which actually worked out. It was a super cold night. It was like 39 degrees, I think. And so, you know, sleeping in the lean-to at 39 degrees, I was quite ready to pop out and start moving and getting warm again. So, had no real issues, I think, around 12:45 or so, getting Jim and Aaron together to start going again.
So, I mean, 2 hours of rest after doing 16 high peaks. That's quite, man. So a quick recap. Day 3, you were up at 2:30 a.m. Then you walked down the lake road and you hit Lower Wolfjaw, Upper Wolfjaw, Armstrong, Gothics, over Pyramid to Sawteeth, back over Pyramid to Gothics, down the cable route, Saddleback, Basins, Haystack, Mount Marcy, Skylight, Gray, Cliff, then down to the Lake Arnold Trail to Cliff, Redfield, Colden, Tabletop, and Phelps. 16 high peaks, 37 miles, 18,400 feet of gain. You slept at the Klondike Lean-To for only 90 minutes. That is impressive. Very impressive. So day 4, take us through it. The big day.
Yeah, I think by then I was like smelling the barn, which I was reminding myself it's a little early to smell the barn, but you know, I knew that last day I had segmented into these 10-mile or so chunks. So, you know, in my mind, it's like, okay, 10 miles is basically 9 miles. So you're basically just counting down single digits. So I was playing all sorts of mental tricks with myself to convince myself that this would be easier than 40 miles still to go would feel. But it was, like I said, it was super cold. So we were bundled up and we headed out from the lean-to, I think it's just the Klondike Brook Trail, and it kind of goes up and you take that left to Yard Mountain.
Yep, to go to Big Slide, yep.
Exactly, yep. So we hit Big Slide and we made pretty good time, probably because we were cold and pushing it a little bit much. But by the time we were on Big Slide, we had warmed up and were feeling better and, you know, ready to tackle the next section, which is good because that was another bushwhack section. So that was going to be the bushwhack from Big Slide. After the third, you head back toward the Brothers, and I believe it's in between the second and the third Brothers. You head off for the bushwhack, and Jim and I Jim had been up in the Adirondacks with me last September, and that was one of the bushwhacks we had kind of scouted together. So he also knew that one well and felt good about doing that in the dark, and it went off really without a hitch. And I would say we probably did it a little bit better than we did in September too. We learned a couple things out there. So
great. And this is a bushwhack to Porter you're talking about.
Correct. Yep. And so that was probably one of the longer ones. That one always tends to feel longer, I feel like, to me in my mind. I've never actually looked at kind of what the mileage of those bushwhacks is compared to like the Dix to Dial or something like that. But we did really well, I think, doing that. You still have, once you get onto kind of the old herd trail there, you still have a little bit of climbing to do to actually get up to Porter. But once you're there, it's like you can breathe a little bit of a sigh of relief and you have some smooth sailing over to Cascade, where we caught sunrise, which, you know, who doesn't want to catch sunrise on Cascade. So, of course, a few others were out there too and had similar thoughts. I think they had some different paths to get there, but, we got to enjoy that sunrise a little bit as we hit the summit and then headed down towards 73 where the crew van was waiting. So we got down, the sun was fully up at that point, and I think that section took us around 6 hours. So I want to say it was just after 6 a.m. or so when we hit 73. And so that meant, time for a cup of coffee and kind of enjoy a very brief little nap on the way over to Street and Nye. We would be heading back to the Adirondack Lodge for that. And at that point, I was actually feeling really good. I knew the bushwhacks were behind me. I knew I only had, these 3 kind of shorter chunks. And, I felt pretty good. So I kind of let my crew know that the plan would be, I would not be taking that extra 2-hour nap. I had kind of said in the binder was a maybe, that we could do, but I said I didn't want to do that. We were going to keep pushing on and see how we go. So we headed to the Adirondack Lodge and hopped out of the van while the crew, by then it was, of course, the parking's always full
Sure.
there. So,
Always.
we hop out, they go park at the South Meadow Road, and we did the Street and Nye section, and super nice. It's actually, I've done Street and Nye a couple times, and both were pretty like overcast, dreary, rainy days. So it was actually like a nice sunny morning, and it started out pretty chilly, but then we shedded layers really quick. And that's actually quite a nice hike when the sun's out and the sky is blue, and definitely gives it a different feel. So we kind of, just chugged away at that. And when I came back out to the little parking area at the Adirondack Lodge, my parents had come out at that point and were waiting there and had made me cups of tater tots, which is one of my favorite kind of treats. Yeah.
Very
so that
nice.
was, they knew that would be, something I would want to be eating at that point. So it was nice to just get to see them and hug them. And, at that point I was letting myself kind of feel like the end was in sight and to relax just a little bit. So that was a nice treat to see them. And then we hopped back in the van. And I had a lot of driving, I guess, for this last day, but that was definitely on purpose because I was pretty tired and able to catch decent naps then for these next couple segments. So, took a little nap while they drove over to the Whiteface, the trailhead for the Whiteface trail. Is it Marblehead Trailhead or something?
Marble Mountain Trailhead.
Marble Mountain. Okay. Yep. So, we headed over there and, jumped out. By this time we were able to kind of double up with pacers for these shorter segments, which is nice because they can, we rotate the chatting and the distracting, and they can kind of share the weight of who's carrying what. And I'm carrying essentially only the flask I'm drinking from at the time. So my weight is really, very, very minimal at this point. And, that's super helpful. So we hit Esther and Whiteface, and it was a pretty crowded day there. I guess it was Thursday, so not too surprising. But seeing other people out was nice, and definitely had the sun shining and things were good. And I actually chose to descend off of the ski trails. So I was coming down that way versus kind of doing it out and back on the actual Marble Mountain Trail, I guess it would be then. So I just find that descending out the ski trail is, a lot of pounding, but it goes a lot faster. So it's a little less technical in some ways and just a little bit more straightforward. So we, minus the short section at the very top, I should say, there are some ropes there that are quite technical. But we descended down to the ski center, and from there it was pretty exciting because everyone knew we were into the last segment, and it was pretty exciting. But I still wanted one last nap.
Of course.
So, I hopped back in the back of the van and got that nap, and they drove me over to the Giant Mountain trailhead back on 73 over there. And, we popped out of the van, and I had Matt, John, and Courtney coming with me for that final segment. So it was like a little walking party kind of up the mountain. And I was just so excited to be getting close to being done. I also had, probably a couple motivating factors at that point. One, I knew I was pushing sunset, so I wanted to spend the least amount of time in the dark again that I could. So that was kind of helping motivate me. And then two, I knew that, some of the other times that were on the record board from Jan and Cave Dog were coming close. So, I said, let's see what I can do and see if I can beat those while I'm out here. So I was definitely having that in mind to keep me pushing. And Giant is another one I've done a few times. And so I just like the rhythm of that climb. And I think, you get those beautiful vista views as you go, and it's pretty remarkable. So we almost jinxed ourselves by saying there was no rain, and it started to sprinkle for just a second before I think that we had some other good karma on our side, and that went away. And we ended up, I did the Rocky Peak out and back first. And I mean, I think that's one of the best views that you get in the high peaks as well. Just so unique in that you can see the high peaks on one side, and then you turn and you can see the Green Mountains on the other. And, with that beautiful clear night like that was pretty cool, as I knew the whole adventure was kind of drawing to an end. And we headed back, we got to Giant, and again, just, sun is setting and these beautiful views of the high peaks. And, it's pretty, probably not, I think, what most people choose as their final peak to end on. But for me, it was just, it had been one of my first high peaks, and I really think that view is a special one. It's one that I always kind of come back to as one of my favorites. So I was pretty pumped to end up there. And, we kind of looked at the watch at that point, and I was like, all right, I guess, if I got to keep moving if I want to not be stuck in the dark for too long. So we did end up having to take our lights out for about probably 20 minutes or so, 30 minutes or so of the descent, but not too bad. And I got back to the trailhead at 8:16 p.m.
All right, there it is. Done.
Yeah, so day 4 totals with all of those segments was 38 miles and 14,800 feet of elevation gain. So, even though I had thought of it as several small chunks, it definitely added up to something bigger.
Yeah, big time. So now at 8:16, when you got back down to the trailhead, what was going through your brain at that point, or what were you thinking at that moment?
I was just so excited. And it's one of those things where it's so overwhelming because, you have this group of people who's helped you through the last handful of days and done it so selflessly, and they've sacrificed so much to be there for you, for your name to then be, in the record book. And it's truly overwhelming to be standing there in that moment and to be realizing just how lucky you are to be able to go out in the mountains and do something like that for a few days, but to also have a group of people who are there to support you and to help you do it. Words can't even describe. So it's really a very, very special moment, but, and it's one that I think about and I draw upon quite often now, but to describe it, I can't even do it justice. It's a once in a lifetime type of moment.
Very cool. So day 4, the final day, started on the Klondike Trail up to Big Slide, then a bushwhack to Porter, a sunrise on Cascade, down to the crew van, back to the Adirondack Lodge where she hit Street and Nye, ending with a nice hug with Mom and Dad and some tater tots, which were clutch, and then a van ride and a nap over to Whiteface and Esther, down the ski trails at Whiteface, and then the long drive over to Giant and Rocky Peak Ridge where she hiked the Ridge Trail, up to Rocky Peak Ridge, over to Giant for the sunset, and back down to 73 at 8:16 p.m. 38 miles, 14,800 feet of gain. And that's it.